Hi, I'm David Saville, creator of Becoming Superhuman. I'm a life coach, and rather than just asking questions, I challenge my clients in a way that creates radical change in a single session. I'm currently launching my signature program, Becoming Superhuman, as a range of immersive events, online courses, and live adventures to help you handle anything, create anything, and choose to be powerful. I also want to raise global standards, training leaders to do meaningful work and to do what's right. Leaders of companies, leaders of countries, rippling throughout the world, creating a future generation of children who actually embrace risk, naturally help others, and seek to live lives that mean something. Welcome to Becoming Superhuman. Today, I'm going to be exploring, it's like invisible power. And this has been a topic that's been coming up quite a lot. Originally this came up because I did a talk a few weeks ago for the Modern Man Summit, and I was teaching the art of storytelling. And during that, people are sharing their personal stories. And what I asked of them was to sort of stretch themselves, to go beyond what they would normally share. And they did that. Wonderful, beautiful. Only an hour, but in that hour, a lot changed. People had some great experiences. Someone came up to me at the end and asked me, he says, well, it's all right here, to do this here. But he said, what about when you're outside in the world and people don't like this or people disagree? And my answer was, he was asking me what I do. So my answer, which I just came out spontaneously actually, was, I choose to be powerful. And I didn't know that I'd come up with that, but it makes sense to me. Because any time that we are choosing what we say and what we do based upon the potential reaction of others, we are shrinking and minimizing ourselves. And also that's like thinking we even know what people are thinking and what people are actually meaning anyway, right? Because we don't. Anytime you think you know what someone's thinking, it's very wrong. When people are looking at you and you're talking to them, most people aren't even really listening. This is one of the other things that I'm very strong on teaching, which is the art of listening, deep listening. Because, if you're thinking or you're speaking, you are not listening. So most people, when they're looking at you, aren't listening anyway. So if you guide your behaviour based on what you think they're thinking, you're always wrong. So it's even worse than that. And what it does is it erodes your power as a human being, and it erodes your sense of self and what's meaningful to you, and also you're training yourself to be weak, really. Like I did for most of my life. I'm speaking from personal experience of having lived this way. When I used to hold back and not share anything really, unless I knew for sure someone else agreed with me first. So how would I know someone agrees with me? I'd have to then speak first. So what I used to do was I'd hold back, and it was only after someone shared something would I agree. So of course, when it came to those interactions, I had no real influence. There's no point me being there, right? Because if you're only agreeing with someone, it's pretty meaningless. There's no depth to be had if you're just saying, yeah, same here. It has no impact at all. And so, obviously I'm exploring how you can become superhuman, and I'm working with people in this way in ever increasing ways, personally, professionally, every which way I can, channeling things into not just being a human, but being a superhuman version of yourself. And this is like the hidden power, the invisible power that I've been aware of for a very long time, but only been articulating it and noticing it recently through all the different workshops I'm running and different experiences that I'm sort of guiding people through. You get to see this. It's obvious actually. If you go through rush hour, you get to see how people weaken themselves. Then if you're walking in the opposite direction to people, how many will actually glance at you? How many are looking at the ground? How many are, as soon as they're sitting and you're opposite each other, are burying their faces in their phones or something to read, or even just shutting their eyes or whatever. Now, of course, sometimes they do it just because they want to do that. But a lot of people are not doing it for those reasons. They're doing it because it's too uncomfortable to potentially look someone else in the eye. Or to even worse, have to talk to someone. And often they're looking for excuses, right? You're on the train. The only time, or one of the only times that people tend to talk to each other is when something goes wrong. So, stuck in a tunnel. And at first, people won't. There'll still be that silence. Even if you're like this close to people, absolute silence, right? Been there a while, though, and they say, we don't know how long it's going to be. Suddenly, people start talking, making little jokes, or, trying to connect, or moaning is another one, like, complaining together. Suddenly, these people who were terrified of talking to each other, suddenly now they've got a good reason to, right? Because you have to have a good reason to talk to someone, right? You can't just speak to another human being. That would be terrible. You have to have a real good reason. And being stuck in a tunnel apparently is one. Yeah, that seems to happen. And so it's like people are seeking these excuses to be able to speak to other people and to be able to have a connection, really, because we crave connection. I saw recently, looking at how our brains work, and we actually have social centres at the front of our brains designed for social interaction that need to be stimulated. For our brains to function properly, for us to be able to be who we are as individuals, we actually need social stimulation. But it's social stimulation that is both ways, right? So it's a way of maintaining our individuality while also connecting with others. It's actually vital for our growth as growing up. So, it's essentially, we know this for children, right? When children are growing up, we know it's pretty obvious if a child is not going to interact with other children, there are going to be problems when they grow up. It's obvious. And yet as adults, we're often not interacting. Number of people I've worked with who spend a lot of their life solitary, on their own a lot. And then so when they live on their own, and if they haven't got a job, they've taken time out, because quite a few clients of mine have actually, they've gone like, look, I'm tired of the rat race, but I don't know what to do next. So they just stop working. And so what's happening is they tend to withdraw from things and explore and connect with people in a small way, but the majority of their life is alone. And what this can often do is train people to be alone and to not speak and to not connect. And the more disconnected and the longer they do that, the harder it is actually to connect to what they want in life, to find meaning and purpose, and to feel like they're contributing to society. And it can be a real detriment, actually. I've seen this many times, the reaction to people who had very successful careers, suddenly going the opposite way and having no career, no purpose, no meaning, and feeling lost. And a lot of that's to do with the loss of connection. And it's to do with what I'm talking about in this one, which is about invisible power. Now, the invisible power I'm talking about, it's like me looking at you in the eyes, for instance. If we were together and we're talking to each other, it's the ability to be able to just look you in the eyes and just connect with you without needing to look away. Now, of course, we're not necessarily going to stare at each other the whole time. There's a natural thing of when you think, you sort of remember things and your eyes go around. However, if we're speaking together, I want my attention to be with you. So the personal power part of that is I do not need to look away because I feel because I feel uncomfortable. There's nothing you could ever say to me that would make me want to look away, because everything you say is okay. It doesn't. I've, as a life coach and as a friend actually, and as a family member, I've heard some pretty dark things that people have shared with me, and I promise you, I will not look away. Over the time, I've developed that ability and that will and that desire really to just be here for people in that way. So one way that we measure the invisible power within us is our ability to hold someone's gaze. It's very simple. And again, you notice this when you're out with people generally, how hard it is for them to look you in the eye for more than a brief second, couple of seconds, and there's a lot of discomfort, look down to the ground, want to look away. It's an eroding of that power, really, as a human being, because being seen. Because whatever this is, whatever we look like, whatever clothes we're wearing, it's kind of the wrapping, it's kind of like the window dressing. Who we are is contained within our eyes. A lot of it, you can see into who someone is, right? When you're looking at someone, it's easier to tell if they're lying. It's easier to tell if you connect with each other. It's easier to tell emotions that are going on within them and within your, and to be able to connect in those ways. There's a lot there's a reason why they say that the eyes are the windows to the soul. And that's because whatever everything else is going on, that's kind of where we exist, at least how we can connect, assuming we have sight. If they're blind, it's a different story. But this is specifically for most of us who aren't, thankfully, blind in that way. We are able to see each other and to look through the superficial, through the colour of the eyes, into who we are. And that can be very scary. And there are good reasons why it's scary, of course. It's like, I remember when I was younger, for instance, walking along, staring at, if I looked in someone's eyes, someone might say to me, "Oi, mush, what are you looking at?" And it's quite terrifying as a kid growing up to have someone, just because I happened to catch their eye for a split second, to be almost like I feel so threatened they have to shout at a child, which I remember growing up like that. So there's this threat response that happens. But thankfully in the world we live in, most of us don't need to live within that threat response. And so in ordinary interpersonal connection with most people are good people in my experience, we can challenge our invisible power and deepen it by just holding eye contact more. Nima, thank you. Thank you for stopping by. It will be here for you when you're ready. Please, it's been great having you interact as well, by the way. You know, when you've been asking some great questions and sharing what's been going on for you as well. And so I invite anyone actually watching this now or watching this on the replay, you know, share. You know, I want to hear from you does this resonate with you? You know, like when you consider yourself, you know, how do you feel? Like when you're looking at someone and they're staring back at you, are you able to hold their gaze, or do you find yourself pulling away because it feels like it's too intense? The emotions feel it's too much. Maybe you don't want to give something away. That's a lot of why people might look away too. You know, because you don't want to show the emotion that you're feeling, and so you look away and get busy with something else, distract ourselves from emotion. What is your personal experience of this? You know, how are you challenging yourself as well to have more presence and more power within this? So that's one way. So eye contact is one way of invisible power. Another one is simply through the way we have our conversations, the things we share. So in the workshop I did the other day, or the sort of interactive talk I did at Inspired in Mayfair, again, we've got people to share with each other. Share some fears was the thing. Share something that you're scared of. It's just, you know, to connect with someone that you've just met, and you're going to share something that you're scared of, you know, which most people wouldn't necessarily choose to do. However, this is an environment of people that are there for a similar reason. It's like, well, let's do this. Let's connect in this way. And when you do this, it's actually not about the person that you're sharing with. It's about you. You know, the more you're willing to share, the more powerful you are. You know, the freer you are. You know, the more energy you need to put into your thoughts about what you're going to say, the more time you're wasting, the more energy is being expended, and the actual harder it is for you to connect with people. Because it's weird, when you have a conversation with someone and then they go quiet while they're thinking about what they can share, and then they start speaking, that gap can create a problem in the person listening to go, what's wrong here? Something's wrong. Either this person's lying to me right now, they're holding something back, and there's a tension there, and it can feel a bit weird. And this is subconscious, by the way. They may not be saying this to themselves like I am right now. But this is the kind of thing that goes on because unconsciously what we're looking for when we're speaking to people is just flow. We're looking for flow and spark between us and that chemistry that's there. A lot of this is subconscious though. We're not really necessarily, most people, paying attention to what they're noticing. But this is it. So any interruption to that flow that feels a bit unnatural can create a barrier to connection. So the willingness to be able to just share openly and honestly is really cool. It doesn't mean you share everything with everyone all the time, because that would be crazy, and that would also be a waste of energy too in that way. But it's the willingness to, you know, the fact that someone asks me a question at any moment, can just share it, can just share my honest answer. I don't care what your response is. I don't care if you like my answer or not. What I do care about is that I share something of meaning from me, and it's like that invisible power there that no one else can know. And this is what I shared with them there. It's like nobody knows really. This was a test for them. So I'm like, this is a test for you, right? When you're talking to someone, nobody else knows this. It's a personal test. It's like, where are you holding back? And how far are you willing to go? Where are you limiting yourself? You know, so you can test this. So you're able to take advantage of this and to develop your own personal power by, you know, when no one else knows. This is like the secret mission that I wrote in the description here. This can be your secret mission if you choose to accept it. Now, there are many cool benefits to doing this. It's not just in the world of personal development. This is just for life, really. It's a basic life skill that seems to have been lost because of the way we're conditioned to hold back and to stop sharing emotions. So there's some very, very cool benefits. When I did a talk, I think it was sometime this year, I think, or the end of last year. It was an interesting talk to London. And I was doing a talk on deep connections. And Matt, the guy that runs the event, he'd received an email from someone. He said, I'm sorry I can't come to David's talk, he said, but I do have a really good excuse. He said, when I came to David's talk a couple of years ago, I think it was 2 years before, he says, on the train to the event, there was this girl, and he liked the look of her, but he was too scared to approach her. Thankfully, she was coming to the same event. And thankfully, it was my event, which means people interact, right? So that's what I do. I get people to interact and to engage and to get something of value, you know, during it, have an experience that can change them. You know, it's why, you know, it's what excites me about doing this kind of stuff. And I don't like just doing a talk without interaction. The interaction is like, well, something can change for you right now, right? So you came to this talk, and I got them paired up, and they got to share together. And of course, because I get them to share beyond the ordinary, beyond the superficial, something meaningful, they got to connect with each other in that way. And because of that, because they met there and then continued to connect afterwards, 2 years later, they'd moved to Canada and they were about to get married. And it's like, wow. So there's a few things there, right? There are a few things that had to happen to lead to the point of marriage, which if they hadn't been coming to this event, she and he may have just seen each other on the train and never seen each other again. And that may be the end of the story. That's a story for a lot of us, right? I mean, a number of people that I had over the years when I thought I want to go speak to that person but never did. And it's like, well, that could have happened. So what they've done now, not only have they shared in that moment and challenged themselves, because even though I invite people to share, they still have to do it, you know, they still have to take ownership of that and be willing to share something of themselves, which they did. Then, of course, they had to continue to do that and continue to connect in a way that leads to that. It leads to marriage. Then, of course, if they have children, that child's going to be born into a family that has a cool story, right? A cool meeting story and a brave one, you know, of what they shared with each other. And then that child gets to grow up experiencing that bravery, and who knows what kind of life he or she may lead, or they, if they have multiple children. Then, of course, there's everyone they come into contact with and share this story with. There's even the fact that I'm sharing this with you now, even, may inspire some of you to deliberately make the effort to go and challenge yourself. You know, to be a person who can create a marriage out of someone you've just met, you need to be brave and you need to challenge yourself in this way, right? So even me sharing this with you now could make a difference to you if you're a person who would normally hold back. So the impact of those two people meeting at my event, being like put together, running through sharing some personal things they wouldn't normally share, liking each other enough to continue, leads to a lot of transformation and a different way of living for them and for other people they come into contact with and share this with, you know. That's what they get to do. That's like invisible power. Now, of course, I can only do a certain number of events per year, so people need to be able to do this away from my events too. So that's what I recommend. That's why I'm sharing this stuff. So, although it'd be cool if you come to my event and some great stuff happen, you'll get some transformation occurring if you play with the experiences. But you get to do that right now. You get to develop your own invisible personal power. This is what you can do every single day. Every conversation is an opportunity. Every interaction, every message you receive is a chance to be more honest and to be more direct and to ask for what you want. And the benefits just ripple out into every part of your life. You know, you can do it in one area, you can transfer that out to many others too. It's really important. It's invisible power. It's something that people, it's very easy for people to talk about the big stuff. You know, about jumping out of the aeroplane, to going, quitting your job, and all these big things. And they're cool and they're useful and they can be fun. But it's the invisible power that will carry you, that carries you in the moments. It will carry your interactions. It will create that loving relationship that is meaningful to you. It will create incredible friendships that can stay with you and grow together for the rest of your life. They create the deeper bonds with your family. You know, you cannot know what impact this will have when you embrace the invisible power that exists within you. So if this resonates with you, you get this and you want to develop your own invisible power, becoming superhuman. You know, next year I've got a range of things actually. I've got my 4-month immersive, incredible thing, which is designed so that everyone that goes through that becomes the superhuman version of themselves, which means they have no limitation after going through the program that isn't real. So there's no illusion, there's no illusory limitations anymore. There may be real physical ones, there may be real skill development ones, there may be real, potential ones that exist. So you only hit real blocks after this. It's living a life when the only real obstacles are real obstacles. That's what this is designed for. And because of these conversations actually about power I've had recently, in invisible power, I'm actually going to be doing something cool in the new year, focused, it's going to be like a few days together, focused on developing this invisible power within. So, it's the ability to just go and ask for anything you want, to be able to get the pay rise at work, to be able to ask someone out, to, you know, for the invisible moments within your life when you just say, do and be what you want to be. You know, this is like, I think start the year off with this will be pretty cool. So I'm going to be doing that. So if any of that interests you and you feel the pull to become superhuman, send me a message and I'll let you know how that could happen and see if it's right for you. But yeah, send me a message through Facebook actually, or on my email address you can too, which is david@davidsaville.co.uk. This is cool. See, what I love about the becoming superhuman thing, by the way, is that it makes me have to live to higher standards myself too, right? This is why it's so important. It means I have to bring more to bear in everyday life. And then I get to raise the standards of what I get to share with you and what I get to share with my clients and with the people I get to do the deep work with. And it means everything gets better. I mean, what I've noticed in the past few months actually is just how rapidly my clients are changing as a direct result of this. You know, it's like for me, every single session is an opportunity for radical change. You know, every single one. I don't want to show up to anything that isn't. And so the more, and the thing is, this is the beautiful thing about your life. Every day is an opportunity for transformation. Like complete life transformation can happen day after day after day if you're willing to take the risks. And that's where this invisible power comes in. Because there are consequences to not doing this as well. And I've lived them. For my 35 years of my life, I lived through them. So it's only been the past 5 years that I have stepped deeply into this. The consequences are huge. If you're with someone and someone says something that goes against your values, so maybe someone says something racist, for instance, and you're there and you don't like what they've said, but maybe because you're white, because I've had this in the past, because I'm white, they think, oh, then obviously it's okay to say racist things because you're white and I'm white, and if we say against other people who aren't white, that's okay. And I'm like, and you know, sometimes in the past, I wouldn't have said stuff. And of course, as I stepped into this, it's unacceptable because holding back from that, even just a small off-the-cuff comment, that lets that person think it's okay. They can say more. Then, of course, they walk through this world thinking that what maybe they think about what they're doing is right. And we don't get the opportunity to maybe change their mind. We don't get the opportunity to maybe other people around them to hear that's different. The impact of that can lead to terrible things. You know, I'm reading a lot from the Jordan Peterson book at the moment, which is like 12 Rules to Chaos. I like watching his lectures and his interviews and things. Fascinating guy, very misunderstood by too many people actually, who don't listen deeply enough to what he's saying. However, what he's done, he spent decades researching how how Nazis happened, how Nazi Germany happened, how Stalin and communism happened, and all the atrocities actually from the 20th century. He researched these things deeply because he wanted to know how could so many ordinary people do terrible things. Because he said there's people who are psychopathic who may naturally do more of these things, these evil things as you call them. They're a very tiny number of the population, very tiny. Most people just are ordinary, have ordinary brains, and they are led in certain directions. And he wanted to understand that. And through his decades of research, it's no small amount by the way, he's researched deeply this stuff. You know, psychologically, neurologically, biologically, you know, evolutionary, and all of these things combined, to find out how it happened. And what he discovered was, it's that, I can't remember who said it, was it the only thing for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing, you know, I think there's that old adage. And it's like, the truth is that unless we prepare ourselves robustly to become resilient, we are going to be led by others. We are going to, you know, and that's that moment, right? So if you're with someone says something racist, and we don't disagree with it or speak about it or do something to stop that or make it clear that's not okay, take it to a more extreme level. That is someone committing a racist act and creating violence on someone. If you can't even say out loud, that's not okay, are you going to be able to stop someone who's physically violent to someone in that way? And then what if that was on a mass scale across the country? So what he's discovered, which is quite horrific but good to know, is that every human being really, apart from a small few, are naturally would do those things. The way our psychology works, it would make us be able to commit those atrocities if we were under the right kind of pressure, in the right kind of way. Which obviously they did in both Nazi Germany and Russia, and there's been other things like Serbia as well, the end of the century. So it still continues around the world, right? This is still happening. And it's like, understand this unless you choose to be powerful and choose to get to say out loud and do the things that mean something to you, regardless of how others interact around you, you risk becoming someone who could commit the atrocities that the Nazi sympathisers did, that the people in Russia did, that in Serbia they did. Because this is how our brain works. There's a study done I saw recently, MRI, where they had, so under a functional MRI, they showed pictures of hands, just different coloured hands. And they stuck a needle in it. So the picture was a needle going in. So what they showed was that when they were just different coloured hands, and people's brains responded similarly to it. So what it is, in our brain, there's like a pain centre, and if we see someone who's in pain, the same centres are aroused emotionally. So it's like we're getting a mirror of what someone else is experiencing, like empathy. So it's actually a part of the brain lights up that is similar to the pain centre that goes, I empathise with you, I feel your pain, essentially, is what that is. So when there was no labels on the hands, people were seeing them as equal. So the pain centres were lighting up very similarly for every hand. Then they put some labels on them. Jewish, Muslim, Christian, atheist, and some other labels. Once they did that, just a single word, when they did the same thing, what they noticed was the pain centre would only be activated primarily for those who are similar. So an atheist to an atheist, a Christian to Christian, and so on. So what that means is that once we put someone in a certain box in our brain, we label it, it then takes them out of the I feel your pain category into you're a thing category. When someone's in a thing category, suddenly it's easier to do things to that person which may seem way outside of human capabilities, because we no longer see them as like us, we see them as very different. And obviously we see this play out all the time when people are committing horrendous atrocities on each other. But I think understanding how we work in our brains is really important. And so to not be someone whoever does anything terrible in that way, no matter what goes on in our environment, in our society, then what Jordan Peterson is like, well, we need to train ourselves, we need to become resilient. Now, obviously, he cracks me up because he says, we're pathetic. To just stop being pathetic. He says, if you don't want to be pathetic, you've got to work, you've got to contribute. So his is all about, just being less pathetic, which he says a bit tongue-in-cheek, but and people respond to it, though, because it's like, okay, we're all pathetic, let's be less pathetic. Life is hard, life is terrible, but let's work to be less pathetic and at least contribute in this world. So that's kind of the way I interpret how he talks about it, which is quite funny. And obviously deeply meaningful too. He cares deeply when he says this, so he's not messing around. If you watch him, actually, he gets very emotional about this. He truly sees this as it's like a vital part of saving the planet, really, and saving humanity, to be able to get this message across. So it's not messing around, really, but I find it quite amusing because it's always about on the negative side, really. It's like, just don't be as bad as you could be. Don't be as bad as... It's like, how to not be a Nazi would be the way he'd probably talk about this. But for me, it's different to that. For me, I'm like, well, okay, that's true. Let's go beyond that. Let's go to the superhuman aspect. Like, okay, let's do the best we can to build up the resilience and the tolerance that makes us powerful, makes us so we don't get pulled in by others. If someone says something we don't like that's racist or any kind of disgusting comment, we say it and we speak clearly to that person. We make our values heard. We stand up for what we care about. We stand against the things we care about. We do what's right for us. So we do that. Then, of course, it means that we get to be powerful invisibly, right, within these interactions. So once you're able to just say what you want, and you're able to say what you mean, and you're able to say what values you have, once you can do all those things, it doesn't matter how the reaction is, well, that makes everything better. Like I mentioned before, it's like you can create a deep relationship with someone that can create a beautiful family because you've done that, because you've taken that risk. You can go for any job you want. You can go for any interview. You can ask for pay rises. And if you don't get it, that's okay. You maybe ask a few times, and if you still don't get it, you go somewhere else. Right? Life becomes a lot simpler if you've got this invisible power, the ability to just communicate clearly what it is you believe, what it is you think, regardless of how it's received. Choose to be powerful. Now, I see this as a deep desire, a basic requirement for life, actually. If you want to live a life that doesn't go to somewhere terrible, one where you're not prepared for the hardships that life is going to come in life, because life is tough, right? There are terrible things that happen to the people we care about and to us over time. Life gets difficult. So don't waste time. Don't forget how challenging life is. So remember how bad life, the things that happen is. Prepare yourself to be strong enough to handle those things, but also prepare for how amazing life can be too, where you can live a life that feels like it's a dream, where you get to spend time with people you care about, who are creating great things in this world. You get to live a life that's meaningful, doing meaningful work, and it keeps expanding continuously and getting better and better year after year. I remember in the book I was reading, I'm still reading Richard Branson's autobiography, and he says that his grandma, one of his grandmas, she lived till she was 99 years old, and she wrote him a letter a few months before she died to say the last 10 years of her life have been the best of her life. Think about that. The last 10 years, so the age of 89 to 99, were the best of her life. She actually broke 2 world records in that time, actually. So she chose to live life to the fullest and actually experience the best part of her life at the end of her life. And you don't hear that very often, but that's what's available to all of us. Life can keep getting better. None of this rubbish about middle age and then life getting downhill. There are things that change physically and what you're able to do, and other things you can do better. You can have more connections, more family. You know, your life can be richer as you get older. Life can always get better because there's more that can be done and there's more that you can do. And that's why choosing invisible power is so important. You get to do this. So this is the call to action for you now. It's from this moment on, choose to linger in your eye contact a little bit longer with people, to create that power within you that says, I don't need to look away because I'm scared or uncomfortable. Be willing to share things vulnerably. Challenge yourself to share deeper with people. Because the truth is, the people connect with who you are, and who you are is within the emotion and the reasons why you do things in your life. That's why people care about you as opposed to someone else, because of your unique experience and who you are. Bring more of yourself to that. Bring more of yourself to the moment. You create more individuality, you create more connection, you create the sparks that go through. Thank you for the loves, by the way. But share with me your experience of this. Like, does this make sense to you? Obviously it does for the people loving this, but what is it that makes sense? And what are you going to do with this? So this is your call to action. So I'm going to wrap up now, but this is what you can do. You can linger eye contact longer, and you can choose to go first in your interactions, to share deeply and to risk people not liking what you have to say. Do that. It's not just for you. This is for everyone you come into contact with, and it's for every part of your life going forwards. That's what's there for you. Thank you for being here. Now, if you want to dedicate some time next year to being able to develop your invisible power, to become superhuman, to the superhuman version of yourself from wherever you are right now, and you'd be willing to work hard because that's important, and you're willing to have an adventure because that's a vital part of this life, and connect with some awesome people while doing it, send me a message and ask me about becoming superhuman next year. I've got my 4-month intensive designed to take people through something that means you never again have anything in the way of what you want. Nothing that's not real. So it's about training you to be able for life to become simple and for you to be able to create extraordinary things and to know that you can handle anything, create anything, and just choose to be powerful in any moment. And at the beginning of the year, this new thing, which I'm going to launch the year off with, which is invisible power. A few days together, developing your invisible power that you can take to every interaction and to everything you want in life. Any of those sound good to you and you feel like you might want to take part, send me a message on Facebook or email me at david@davidsaville.co.uk. Thank you for being here. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to put them on here. Nima, I know you tend to come back and share things. Please do so. It's a wonderful thing to have your comments here. Oh, Kristen, I didn't see you pop up. Hello and welcome, and thank you for being here. Any further questions or comments, how I can make this more real for you and make this more beneficial, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you on the next episode of Becoming Superhuman. Thank you very much.